Okay, so this part of the blog will be looking at differentiation. So differentiation is when we're looking at how students learn and how everyone goes at their own pace. That's the real core of it. So it's important to include differentiation in every KLA. So music, maths, drama, every different subject will need to consider differentiation in the curriculum. And it's all about what level the students are up to. We'll look at a video later on with Ken Robertson and his thoughts on differentiating the curriculum, but basically a definition of differentiation is gifted students need the opportunity to work through the curriculum at a faster pace and need less time on basics and revision. Okay, so gifted students are already working at a very fast pace. They don't need holding back. And they really need less time on basics and revision. Once they've learnt it, they usually don't need to go back. Okay. Some things that have helped me in approaching differentiation is to include open-ended tasks. So that is a real core. Open-ended tasks really make a difference. And you often explore this in the 1Y and the 1Y course. Myself or Anne will often leave you different ways or a very open task that you can approach how you like. And this is great for those that are really struggling with the content and just need to demonstrate the very basics of what they're asked to do. However, with your gifted students, open-ended tasks are really helpful because they can push themselves. You're not putting a ceiling for them that they can't go past. They can actually go as far as they want with this task and push themselves, which is a really great thing. Another thing is pre-testing. Before you do all the assessments and designing, like adjusting your curriculum as you teach it, it's really good to start with a test so you can get to know where students are at. Again, if you include this with an open-ended task, you're really going to help those that are struggling as well as those that just will go through this work really quickly. Third thing is be aware. Be aware of the students in your class. You might not even know, they might not be addressed. Even if your school has a really big emphasis on differentiation, there may be gifted students that are going under the radar, as well as students that need lots of support with their learning may be going under the radar and appear as, inverted commas, normal. So it is quite incredible. You can have a gifted student with learning needs. I've been made aware of students that have a tremendous memory, but what they really struggle with is reading. They can't read too well. And this can be quite a problem. So they could actually be seen as either a student with learning needs and be labelled as that, but really they had quite a strong memory and could really use that to their advantage and learn well. Probably the biggest thing, and that'll be a big focus of this blog post for today, is the flipped learning classroom. So number 4, flipped learning. This is a very powerful tool, and you've kind of already started to look at this. But flipped learning is, instead of doing the homework, having work at home, so completing exercises number 3 to 4, what you're really doing is you're doing homework in the classroom and you're learning at home. And how people usually do flip learning is videos. Videos are a very powerful tool, and you'll actually notice that this video is an example of flipped learning, where you are learning outside of the classroom or the lecture or the tutorial room. Rather than hear me talk, I thought it'd be great to actually just watch a video to introduce this concept of flipped learning if you aren't very familiar with it.
This is a classroom. The teacher stands at the front, and the students watch and listen. You'll recognise this because it's probably how you were taught, and how your parents were taught before you. But there are a lot of problems with this approach to teaching. You see, not all students learn at the same speed, so some get left behind. And while some students learn better by listening, others may learn better by doing. This means that teachers can't always do the best job they can. But there is another way. The flipped classroom addresses these problems and makes learning more personal. First, the teacher makes a video that delivers the content they'd usually teach in class. Then they share it online with students who can watch it before the next lesson. This leaves the teacher free to spend class time leading activities that help students apply the knowledge. Students can rewind and re-watch a video as many times as they like and come back to class with questions for the teacher. So keeping up with the class is no longer an issue. Students can access the video at any time using mobile devices, giving them the ability to learn more independently. Instead of sitting and listening, students can spend class time applying knowledge in more practical ways. And teachers are free to spend their time working with students and giving them individual support and attention. The flipped classroom model is already making a difference to students and teachers worldwide, so get involved. Discover more at flippedinstitute.org and become part of the movement.
When discussing differentiation, often when we look at students with learning difficulties, we look at ADD or ADHD, and someone I really admire and appreciate their opinion on is Sir Ken Robinson. If you haven't looked up much of Sir Ken before, please do. His thoughts on education are really great because he's an advocate for creativity and encouraging that with teachers all around the world. So I'm going to show you a little excerpt of a video. You can find the full hour-long video in the links below in the blog. But watch this. Sir Ken's thoughts on this subject are fascinating.
This is one of the consequences of it. Let me ask you another question. How many of you who are not... How many of you over 30 have had your tonsils removed? Be frank with me. Go on. Okay. I ask you this for a reason. Again, it's things we take for granted. People of my generation, I was born in 1950. Now, I know you don't believe that. I can see the sense of incredulity sweeping through the room. How could it be, you're saying to yourself? Well, I live in Los Angeles, you know. I've had work done, what can I tell you? But, people of my generation, in the 50s and 60s, and in the 40s, I guess, the minute they had a sore throat, somebody pounced on them and took their tonsils out. That's true, isn't it? It was routine to have your tonsils removed. You could not afford to have a ticklish cough in the 1950s, or somebody would reach for your throat in a peremptory way and remove your tonsils. It was routine. Millions of tonsils were removed in that period. What happened to them? We don't know. I mean, I believe it's a scandal. I don't know, but it's one of those things like Rockwell, you know, like Area 56, somewhere in America, you know, in a desert, there's this stockpile. Anyway, now the thing about this is this, that nowadays people do have tonsillectomies, but it's not common. It's unusual to have it done. You have to have a chronic case with no hope of it being repaired in some other way to have your tonsils taken out. When I was growing up, they were thought to be totally disposable. We'll just whip them out and let's not have any more nonsense about them. And some people voluntarily had it done so they could get the ice cream. Our children, this generation, do not suffer the plague of tonsillectomies. Instead, they suffer this. This is the modern epidemic, and it's as misplaced and it's as fictitious. This is the plague of ADHD. Now, this is a map of the incidence of ADHD in America, or prescriptions for ADHD. Don't mistake me here. I don't mean to say there is no such thing as attention deficit disorder. I'm not qualified to say if there is such a thing. I know that a great majority of psychologists and paediatricians think there is such a thing. But it's still a matter of debate. What I do know for a fact is it's not an epidemic. I believe that these kids are being medicated as routinely as we had our tonsils taken out, and on the same whimsical basis and for the same reason, medical fashion. Our children are living in the most intensely stimulating period in the history of the earth. They're being besieged with information and calls for their attention from every platform, computers, from iPhones, from advertising holdings, from hundreds of television channels. And we're penalizing them now for getting distracted. From what? You know, boring stuff at school, for the most part. It seems to me it's not a coincidence, totally, that the incidence of ADHD has risen in parallel with the growth of standardized testing. Now, these kids are being given Ritalin and Adderall and all manner of things, often quite dangerous drugs, to get them focused and calm them down. Now, I know this is nonsense. Immediately you see this thing, because the lighter areas are where there isn't much of it. Now, I live in California. And people there won't pay attention for more than a minute and a half. You know, so, but according to this, attention deficit disorder increases as you travel east across the country. People start losing interest in Oklahoma. They can hardly think straight in Arkansas. And by the time they get to Washington, they've lost it completely. And there are separate reasons for that, I believe. It's a fictitious disease. And so, I don't say it's a fictitious condition, it's a fictitious epidemic.